What is up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today, as you can tell by the title of the video and also by this beautiful PowerPoint we have on screen right now, actually this PowerPoint is kind of bland. I'm not gonna lie, it's not really that beautiful, but still, it's a PowerPoint nonetheless. And you guys know, when a Meech No Ball video has a PowerPoint, it's about to be a banger. But anyway, yeah, today, like I said, as you can tell by the title and also by the PowerPoint, I'm gonna be rating Barcelona's last 15. Yes, that's right, 1-5 transfer windows. We're going to be going from 08-09 up until the most recent one, obviously 24-25, looking at the departures, looking at the arrivals, and just rating the business that Barca did in that transfer window. This should be really, really fun. This was not my idea. I do not like taking credit for ideas that I did not come up with. This is courtesy of John D. Barca fan. A very, very loyal subscriber of mine. I always see you commenting in the videos, John. So shout out to you, man. Thank you for this awesome idea. I really appreciate you guys obviously giving me ideas for content. It's always very appreciated. So if you guys want to see any other videos during this international break, let me know in the comments section down below. But yeah, man, this PowerPoint, I gotta obviously say this before, as you guys know, was not plagiarized. It was made by me. Meech like balls. I used to be Meech No Ball. Enough of that. I know enough about balls. Now I like balls. I know enough about them that I like them now. So again, it's by Meech Like Balls. But anyway, man, enough of this stupid bullshit. Let's start ranking Barcelona's last 15 transfer windows. First up, we have 08-09. The arrivals are at the top. The departures are at the bottom. Of course, this was a treble-winning year under Pep Guardiola, or should I say, actually, the summer before the treble-winning year under Pep Guardiola. And the guys that Barca brought in were guys like Dani Alves, like Aleb, like Gerard Piqué, like Sergio Busquets, obviously from Barca B, like Seydou Keita. And the guys that they let go were guys like Ronaldinho, like Thuram, like obviously Giovanni Dos Santos, like Zambrota. This transfer window to me from Barcelona is going to get, ready for this? Because you guys know, I come with the surprises. You guys might be looking at this and saying, where's the rating, bro? Michi, did you forget to put the rating? Absolutely not. You want to know what the rating is? It's a 10 out of 10. To me, this transfer window was a 10 out of 10. You brought in Dani Alves, Piqué, and obviously brought up Sergio Busquets from Barca B. Three guys that defined an era for Barca. Three Barca legends, in my opinion. I know that Dani Alves is a piece of shit off the pitch, but still, when it comes to on the pitch, this guy was a phenom for Barca. And the second he got to that team at right back, he completely changed the way that Barca played. So obviously, Dani Alves was a huge addition coming over from Sevilla. Barca paid a good amount of money for him. I mean, over 30 million back in those days was a lot of money, but he was worth every penny, in my opinion. You brought in Gerard Piqué. Obviously, we know Gerard Piqué is a La Masia product, but then he got bought by Man United, and then Barca bought him back for only 5 million. That's not too bad for one of the best defenders of all time and one of the best defenders of his generation. And then you brought up Busquets, obviously from Barca B. Not really a transfer because he's still your player, but still wanted to add him in there because Busquets was brought up from the B team. And again, the best CDM of all time in my opinion. And the guys you let go, man, Ronaldinho, he was not good anymore. He was simply not good anymore. A lot of people were hating on Pep when he first got to Barca and decided to let go of Ronaldinho because obviously he's a Barca legend, a guy who was pivotal in Barca winning the UCL. You know, people were like, how dare you treat Ronaldinho like that? But I think Pep saw what we all saw as Barca fans, that Ronaldinho was on a decline. And we still got 24 million for Ronaldinho. I mean, that's really not bad. And this guy, like I said, Ronaldinho never had another great moment in his career after leaving Barca. He was obviously done after he left Barca, and Pep saw that. So again, Dino's a Barca legend, but he was that was good business to let him go. Zambrota, again, you get 10 million for him. He was not good enough anymore. Giovanni Dos Santos, Deco, all these guys that were kind of part of the team when Barca were part of the team under Rijkaard. Pep didn't want him anymore. He let them go. And again, for me, this is great business. You got rid of a lot of older players that were not going to be part of the squad anymore. You brought in guys that define an era for Barcelona, a dominant era. So for that reason, I'm going to give it a 10 out of 10. I mean, Dani Alves, Piqué, and Busquets in the same transfer window. And Pinto, by the way, Pinto, a free transfer from Celta Vigo. If you guys watch Barca for as long as I have, you know that Pinto was a really, really good backup keeper for a long time. A really, really good backup keeper for a long time. So again, that to me is good business. Keita, I mean, wasn't the best for Barca, but he still was serviceable at times. And Aleb, I mean, he wasn't great. I'm going to be honest with you guys, 17 million for him isn't great. But again, let's not you spent 80 million on him. So for me, when I look at the businesses Barca did in terms of arrivals and departures, I got to give it a 10 out of 10. Let's move on to 09-10. In this transfer window, Barca brought in Zlatan Ibrahimovic. They brought in Chigrinsky, they brought in Kerrison, they brought in Maxwell, they brought in Victor Sanchez, and they brought in Jeffrey, my brother from Venezuela. And then they let go of Samuel Eto'o. Aleb went on, obviously on a loan. Good Johnson left. Martin Cáceres went on loan. And then Silvinho left as well to Man City. This transfer window to me is going to get a 2 out of 10. It's just like letting go of Zlatan, letting go of Eto'o, and bringing in Zlatan. Giving Eto'o to Inter and taking on Zlatan is one of the worst things that Barca ever did. Because we know that this season, Eto'o went on to win back another treble, a second treble in a row, obviously, with Inter. and we brought in Zlatan from Inter, and Zlatan had a good first half of the season for Barca, but he just wasn't good enough. He wasn't as good as Eto'o. He just wasn't as good as Eto'o. And we saw that Eto'o wasn't done because he went on to have a great season with Inter. Obviously, this year when they won the treble. Also, Chigrinsky was, I mean, I don't know, man. This guy was good at Shakhtar. That's why he garnered 25 million from Barcelona, which at the time was the best team in the world. But even a blind man could see this guy was not fit for Barca. He was just not good enough with his feet, and just spending 25 million on him was just simply not good enough. Maxwell assisted, obviously, in that UCL semifinal in the San Siro, the only goal that Barca scored. I think it was Pedro that scored that goal. He sent in that cross, which is great, but I don't think of Maxwell as a guy who defined an era for Barcelona. But again, for me, the biggest thing when it comes to this transfer window is letting go of Eto'o and bringing in Zlatan. That swap, man. Giving Inter that ammunition, giving Inter that guy. I mean, Inter ended up beating us. You know, it's like we literally helped them beat us in that semifinal. Jose Mourinho's doing lobster on the Camp Nou. I'm fucking crying in my room. This is not great. There's really not much else to say. I mean, this transfer window for me was a complete disaster. Aleb going to sending him out on loan was obviously good. Good Johnson was serviceable for Barca for a long time, but he was just obviously done. Monaco gave you 2 million for him. And then Savinho goes to Man City. Savinho, again, was part of that trouble-winning team in 08-09, but, you know, he was not good anymore. So, again, for me, the biggest, like, the key point of this transfer window was the letting go of Eto'o and the bringing in of Zlatan, and that, to me, is some of the worst business Barca has ever done. So, for that reason, and also Chigrinsky was a fucking terrible player for Barca. So, for that reason, it's going to get a 2 out of 10. Let's move on to 10-11. In this transfer window, Barca brought in guys like David Villa, Javier Mascherano, Adriano, Ibrahim Abelai, and Andreu Fontas, obviously from, Barca B. Pardon me, I had the burp. We're switching it from sorry to pardon me, a little more fancy, a little more classy. We're doing a PowerPoint here, guys, okay? We gotta, you know, it's enough of the child's play, enough of the shitty vocabulary, as I say a curse word. We gotta take it up a notch. So anyway, those are the guys that Barca brought in, and then let go of guys like Yaya Toure. Chigrinsky literally spent 1 year at Barca. You got 15 million for him, which wasn't bad, but still, you gave him, you sold him, you let go. Zlatan went on loan, but we all knew when he left he wasn't gonna come back. Aleb left also on loan. You have Martin Cáceres. All these guys are fucking irrelevant. Thierry Henry left on a free transfer, and Rafa Marquez left on a free transfer. This transfer window to me from Barca is going to get a solid 10 out of 10. You got rid of a lot of players that were just not good enough for Barca anymore. Guys like obviously Zlatan Ibrahimovic, guys like Martin Cáceres, guys like obviously Chigrinsky that just weren't good enough for Barca. Thierry Henry and Rafa Marquez, two guys that obviously Rafa Marquez back in 05-06 when Barca won the UCL, who was pivotal for that team. Henry in the trouble-winning year, he was really, really good. Henry had a good stint at Barca, but we all knew at this point he was already washed, and Barca just let him go on free. So again, I'm not too mad about that. But when you look at the players that Barca brought in, David Villa, Javier Mascherano, Adriano. I mean, those three guys, especially the first two. David Villa was really, really good for Barca. He was pivotal for that team that won the UCL in Wembley against Man United. I mean, this guy was fantastic. One of the most underrated players of all time. And Javier Mascherano was a guy who, well, he never really got a lot of recognition while he was at Barca. If you're a Barca fan, if you're a guy like me who watches every Barca game, who's been watching Barca for so long, you know that this guy, I mean, his contribution to Barcelona in those years cannot go under the radar. I mean, this guy was so versatile, such a team player. I fucking love Javier Mascherano. To me, one of the most underrated players of all time. And this guy started the UCL final in Wembley that year. We had two guys in the transfer window that started in a UCL final that same year. Adriano, well, he never had the peak of a guy like Marcelo or Cafu or Dani Alves. I mean, not even close, actually. He still had moments for Barca. He had really, really good moments for Barca that go against, I think it was Atletico Madrid that he scored a fucking banger. Oh my God. This guy had a great shot on him. Afelai, I mean, I don't want to be mean. I don't think he was that good of a player. But again, at the moment, it looked like a good transfer for cheap. You know, this guy was, I mean, 3 million for him wasn't bad. But yeah, man, for me, the reason why I'm giving this one a 10 out of 10 is because you got rid of a lot of players that weren't just weren't going to be part of your squad, and you brought in two guys that started in a UCL final for you. That to me is pretty good business. And two guys that again were pivotal for Barcelona for the years that they were there. Both David Villa and Javier Mascherano. Obviously, Mascherano was there for much longer. But yeah, for me, this one for that reason is going to get a 10 out of 10. A really good transfer window from Barca. I mean, it was good to me. And getting 30 million for Yaya at his age at that time, I mean, that to me is not bad. So anyway, that's 10-11. Let's move on to 11-12 now. In this season, Barca brought in Cesc Fabregas, Alexis Sanchez, and Thiago Alcantara came up from Barca B. And they finally sold Zlatan, they sold Bojan, they sold Jeffrey, and they sold Maxwell. This transfer window to me is going to get a 6 out of 10. Look, Fabregas, Alexis Sanchez, Thiago Alcantara. Thiago, amazing player. Alexis and Cesc, I mean, 34 million for Cesc Fabregas. I think Cesc Fabregas is one of the best creative midfielders I've ever seen. The guy was a fucking stud, okay? And especially at Arsenal when Barca bought him. I mean, this guy was, that connection that he had with Dan Percy, this guy was a beast. He was a fucking beast. But I don't think we got the most out of him as a club. And I don't think he gave Barca the maximum of his ability. So for me, I don't think, like at the moment that was a great signing, obviously we were all happy about it. But in hindsight now, he wasn't, I'm not saying he was a bust, by the way. I'm not saying he was a flop for Barca because he had good moments for us. He definitely had good moments for Barca. But he wasn't really that guy that we needed. And Alexis Sanchez, again, you bring him in from Udinese, you spent 26 million on him. That's really, really good. I mean, that price for Alexis Sanchez, I mean, back in the day, that was a good amount of money, but still, you bring him in and he had good moments for you. But again, I don't think Alexis Sanchez is a Barca legend per se. And getting rid of Bojan, getting rid of Jeffrey, and getting rid of Maxwell, that's good. But again, the departures, we already talked about Zlatan. He was out on loan the year before. He was never going to come back to Barca because Barca were just never going to have him back. And then Bojan, you sold him for 12 million. Jeffrey leaves. My brother, man, I miss you so much. That goal, we'll never forget that goal that you scored in the 5-0, the fifth goal in the El Clásico against Real Madrid back in November of 2010. We love you, man. I mean, at least I love you because you're from the same country. But anyway, that's again, this to me was a pretty mid transfer window. To me, the arrivals were better than the departures. That's why, like, the arrivals that came in were they were decent. So that's why I'm giving it a 6 out of 10. But I could easily give this one a 5 out of 10 because it just could be mid. Like, I could just say it was as mid a transfer window as Barca have had in recent times. But again, Cesc Fabregas, Alexis Sanchez, Thiago Alcantara, all were decent for Barca, especially Thiago, but he came up from Barca B. But again, they all played a good role at the time that they were there. They had good moments. So for that reason, I'm going to give it a 6 out of 10. Let's move on to 12-13. In this season, Barca brought in Alex Song, Jordi Alba, Chris Centello, Martin Montoya, and Jonathan Dos Santos. All three of those guys came up from Barca B. And then we let go of Ibrahim Afellay. He went out on loan. Seydou Keita on a free transfer. And Enrique went to Palmeiras on a free transfer. I mean, the most 5.5 out of 10. This is such a mid-transfer window. The only reason why I'm giving it a 5.5, and it's like a little bit above mid, like slightly above mid, is because you brought in Jordi Alba, who is a guy who is one of the best left backs to ever play for Barcelona, one of the best left backs of his generation. Honestly, I think Jordi, you could say that about Jordi. Would I say he's a Barca legend? Not necessarily, because I think to be a Barca legend, you have to be really, really good and really impactful. And I think Jordi Alba had a lot of bad moments for Barca, as well as good moments, but he had a lot of bad moments. But again, he's the only saving grace in this whole thing. Martin Montoya from Barca B. I mean, these Barca B players that we brought up, oh my God, bro, that's fucking awful. Jesus, man. Talk about La Masia has evolved so much over the years. We're bringing up guys like Marc Bernal, Marc Casado, now Gavi, and Balde, those guys. And we used to be bringing up guys like Martin Montoya. Jesus Christ. But anyway, Alex Song was another fucking flop at Barca. Oh my God, he was just there to collect the check. That's literally, he literally said so himself, by the way. He was just there to collect the check, which I don't blame him, by the way. It's not my money. Again, it's the club that I support, but it's not my money. So more power to him. But again, he just wasn't good enough for Barca. And Afellay, I mean, bye-bye. Seydou Keita, bye-bye. And then Enrique. I mean, just the most forgettable exits ever in the history of Barcelona. So for that reason, I'm gonna give it a 5.5 out of 10. But again, what's really saving this is the fact that Jordi Alba came in. He was the only good transfer out of this whole lot. Let's move on to 13-14. In this season, Barca brought in Neymar. They brought back Bojan. They bought him from Roma. They brought in Gerard Deulofeu from Barca B. They brought in Sergio Roberto from Barca B. And they brought in Rafinha from Barca B. And they let go of Thiago Alcantara, David Villa, Andreu Fontas, and Eric Abidal left on a free transfer. This transfer window to me from Barca is going to get an 8 out of 10. I think this is a really, really good transfer window because you brought in one of the best players of all time, in Neymar. That's just the fact of the matter. The rest of these guys, I don't give a fuck about. You brought in Sergio Roberto from Barca B, great. Rafinha had some good moments for Barca, great. Alcantara left, you got 25 million for him. Again, am I happy with that transfer? No, and that's why this is getting an 8 out of 10 because selling Thiago, looking at it now, it's pretty cheap. You got rid of David Villa, who again was dealing with injuries in his latter years at Barca, but I think he was still serviceable. Eric Abidal left, Fontas. Eric Abidal was already kind of old. Fontas left, I don't really care about him. The top two, or like the top two in the departure, or what I really care about. But again, that to me, you brought in Neymar. This guy was, I mean, people talk shit about Neymar now. When he signed for Barca, I remember watching this guy at Santos because, as you guys know, if you've watched this channel for a long time, I'm a huge fan of South American football. And I remember watching Neymar at Santos with the fucking taper on his nose, with the mohawk. And when Barca got him, watching him in the Club World Cup final in 11-12 when Barca beat them, obviously in Japan. And when Barca got him, again, 88 million for Neymar now looks like a bargain because this guy was that good. I don't care about Bojan. I don't care about any of this. The reason why this is getting an 8 out of 10 is because Neymar came in. Again, I wasn't happy with Thiago leaving and David Villa. That kind of, that's the only reason why I'm not giving it a 10 out of 10. But Neymar coming in, man, I mean, you could not ask for more. What this guy did when he came from Barca, the first season he was there, I mean, Tata Martino didn't want to play him at first, but he became so impactful in the time that he was at Barca, one of our greatest ever players. Honestly, one of our, should I say, not sorry, one of our best ever players. And honestly, you could say greatest as well, because the legacy this guy has at Barca, very few have it. And he formed part of the greatest attacking trio of all time. So for that reason, I'm gonna give this transfer window an 8 out of 10, just because Neymar came in. Again, guys, I'm a Barca fan, okay? Don't come here and look in this video for logic and shit like that, because again, I love this team and I can't be logical sometimes when I'm talking about my team. So when I look at this transfer window, again, some of you guys might say that's super high of a rating. I'm looking at Neymar and I'm looking at the memories that he gave me, and those memories are worth 88 million in my opinion. And Thiago and David Villa, I love them. Neymar's just, bringing in Neymar just saves it all. So again, this one to me is going to get an 8 out of 10. Let's move on to the 2014-2015 transfer window. And in that transfer window, Barca brought in Luis Suarez, obviously from Liverpool. They brought in Jeremy Mathieu. They brought in Thomas Vermaelen. They brought in Ivan Rakitic. They brought in Marc-Andre ter Stegen. They brought in Claudio Bravo. And they brought in Douglas, who no one really gives a fuck about. And they let go of Alexis Sanchez. They let go of Cesc Fabregas. They let go of Cristian Tello on loan, obviously. He went to Porto. They let go of Bojan. They let go of Jonathan Dos Santos. And then also Isaac Cuenca. Or who the fuck is that? Olazábal? I don't know. I've been watching Barca my whole life. I don't even know who that guy is. And then Carry Some. Who gives a fuck about those guys? Anyway, this is the business that Barca did. You guys can see it on the screen, obviously. We mostly care about, you know, the relevant guys here. And this stretch window to me from Barca is going to get a 9 out of 10. A 9 out of 10. The only reason why I'm not giving it a 10 out of 10 is because spending, what would that be? 39 million on Vermaelen and Mathieu is absolutely ridiculous. I'm sorry, but that's ridiculous. 39 million on Vermaelen and Mathieu is crazy, bro. That is absolutely ridiculous. But again, apart from that, this transfer window was amazing. I mean, you bring in Luis Suarez, who is a club legend to me, a Barca legend, a guy who was part of that triple winning team that same season that he came in. One of the greatest goal scorers in the history of Barcelona. That to me is great business. Jeremy Mathieu, again, spending 20 million on him isn't amazing, but this guy was part of that trouble-winning team. When he played, he was decent. Obviously, he scored a goal against Madrid. I remember that season in 14-15 at the Camp Nou. He scored a header against Madrid. If you guys remember that, let me know in the comment section down below. Vermaelen, when he played for Barca, he was decent. He obviously dealt with a lot of injuries. But when he played, I didn't think it was particularly bad. Ivan Rakitic was a fantastic player for Barca. Such a good player. He was better at Barca than Cesc Fabregas, and that to me is not a hot take. I actually believe you could argue Ivan Rakitic is a better player than Cesc Fabregas, but again, totally different roles, and that's a conversation for another day, not for today. But again, Ivan Rakitic to me, fantastic transfer, and the fact that you only have to pay 18 million for him for Sevilla is a bargain. If you look at it now in hindsight, it's a fucking bargain because this guy was fantastic. Ter Stegen has been our goalkeeper for the past 10 years, and again, is he the best thing ever? No, but he was really, really good coming in from Mönchengladbach, and he obviously helped us a lot in that 14-15 season. When he was the goalkeeper for the UCL games. Claudio Bravo obviously came into Barca that year from Real Sociedad, and he was really, really good. He was one of the best goalkeepers in the world in the time that he was at Barca, in my opinion. And to get him for 12 million, that's amazing. You got 42 million for Alexis Sanchez. You got 33 million for Cesc Fabregas. I mean, that's really, really good. That's really, really good in my opinion. Then obviously Isaac Cuenca left, Bojan left, Cristian Tello went out on loan. But again, to me, this transfer window was really, really good. The fact that really, really, do you have a different word? It was majestic. Oh, no, that's a stupid word. It was extraordinary, honestly. It was extraordinary because again, getting that much money for Cesc Fabregas and Alexis Sanchez, guys that were not going to be part of your future plans, that's great. And then bringing in Luis Suarez, bringing in Mathieu, bringing in Ivan Rakitic, most notably, bringing in those two goalkeepers and Mats and Claudio Bravo. Again, an 9 out of 10. And the only reason, like I said, why it's not getting a 10 out of 10 is because spending almost 40 million on Vermaelen and Mathieu makes me a little bit uncomfortable, but again, we can see past that when you look at the other business that Barca did. So that's 14-15, 9 out of 10 for me. Let's move on to 15-16. This one was a fucking travesty. Arda Turan comes in, Alex Vidal comes in, Munir comes up from Barca B, Halilovic comes in from, I'm sorry for laughing, Halilovic comes in from Barca B, and Sandro Ramirez comes in from Barca B, and then Barca let go of Pedro, Gerard Deulofeu, Denis Suarez, Martin Montoya, Xavi, obviously went to Al Saad on a free transfer to the Qatari League, and then Felai, who, oh my god, he makes so many appearances in this video, it's crazy. But anyway, this transfer window to me is going to get a 4 out of 10. Below mid. Arda Turan never was good enough for Barca, and the fact that you gave a rival that money, Atletico Madrid, makes it even worse. Alex Vidal scored a goal in El Clásico that year in the 17-18 season in December, if I'm not mistaken. No, or is it? Yeah, it was 17-18, the 17-18 season in December at the Bernabeu when Barca won 3-1 in that game, if I'm not mistaken. I'm pretty sure that's right. He scored a goal in the El Clásico, which is something that I remember, but again, not great. Munir, Halilovic, and Sandro Ramirez, again, all came up from Barca B, just mid. And then you let go of Pedro, who, you know, I'm not going to say that Pedro had a lot left in the tank, but I mean, he came in before we sold him. He played in the UEFA Super Cup final against Sevilla, one of the most legendary games I've ever seen in my fucking life. That game where Messi scored the 2 free kicks and Ever Banega was all over the pitch, and Pedro came in and scored the winner in that game. And to me, he was still decent enough to play for Barca. And we saw because the season when he went to Chelsea under Conte, he was really, really good in that title-winning year. So again, I wasn't a big fan of letting go of Pedro then. I think he could have been a good squad player. And when you replace him for Arda Turan, I mean, no. Pedro was just better than Arda Turan at the time. And again, you could have kept him for free. Gerard Deulofeu, never was a big fan of him. I just personally never was a big fan of Deulofeu. So I'm glad that Barca let him go. Denis Suarez, you get $4 million for him. Again, whatever. Martin Montoya goes to Inter on loan. Xavi leaves to Al Sadd on a free transfer. Obviously, Xavi was a little bit older already, and he was just past it. And Afelai just, I mean, like I said, he shows up in this video all the time, but I don't know why. But anyway, this transfer window to me was just below mid. Because you could have easily kept Pedro and not brought in Arda Turan, but you decided to bring in Arda Turan and let go of Pedro. Alex Vidal wasn't good enough. To me, the arrivals are not great, and departures, again, the only thing that, like, I'm not mad about Deulofeu, Denis Suarez, and all those guys, because, again, they just weren't good enough. But Pedro is one guy that does kind of, you know, it still bothers me. So for that reason, I'm going to give this one a 4 out of 10. Next up, we have 16-17, and Jesus Christ. We brought in Andre Gomes, we brought in Paco Alcácer, we brought in Samuel Umtiti, we brought in Lucas Digne, and we brought in Jasper Cillessen. This is not, by the way, I'm doing Barca's last 15 transfer windows, not Everton's. You would think this is an Everton video with this transfer window. It's not. This is just a Bartomeu masterclass. The worst president of all time. If Saddam Hussein and, I don't know, Mussolini had a baby, it would be, I don't know how that's biologically possible, but if it was, it would be, what the fuck is his name, Bartomeu? Honestly, what is this? What are these arrivals? Andre Gomes, honestly, you would think it's Everton. You would think this is Burnley or Everton or some mid-table club in the Prem. This is Barcelona. You would think it's Celta Vigo. Honestly, no, it's Barcelona. And then you let go of Claudio Bravo, Mark Bartra, Halilovic, Adriano, Crisantello, Dani Alves, obviously left, went to Juventus, Alex Song, Sandro Ramirez, and obviously Martin Montoya. Here's the thing, I'm not mad about the departures. You let go of Claudio Bravo because City wanted him and you had Mats, a young up-and-coming keeper who you thought was better. That's fine. Mark Bartra never was good enough to play for Barca, in my opinion. He just never was, and again, you let him go for $5 million to Dortmund. Good riddance, more power to him. Halilovic, whatever. Adriano, you gave him to Besiktas for $2.3 million again. He was just not good enough for Barca anymore. Crisantello was never good enough for Barca. Dani Alves, you let him go on a free. You let Dani Alves go on a free. And again, piece of shit human being, but Dani to me still was serviceable at that time. And actually, let's look at the rating. What the fuck am I talking about? It's a 1 out of 10. Yeah, I'm sorry. I think you guys would have guessed that by now, but it's a 1 out of 10. I forgot the most important part of the video, showing you guys a rating. But yeah, it's a 1 out of 10. How many times am I going to say that? Yes, this transfer window was subpar. It was below subpar, if that's even possible, from Barcelona. Again, giving fucking Valencia $67 million for Paco Alcácer and Andre Gomes. Oh my god, Paco Alcácer, the most memorable moment he had at Barca. Remember that 3-2 against Madrid in the Bernabeu, the Messi winner? He missed a fucking sitter in that game. He missed a sitter in that game, if you guys remember that. Missed a sitter in that game, was never good enough. Just wasn't a good player for Barca. It just wasn't good enough. Andre Gomes, no, I mean, not great. Umtiti had his moments. And I'm not going to say Umtiti was bad because when he first got to Barca, this guy was such a fucking, he was such a beast, man. He was so physical, so powerful. I was a big fan of someone Umtiti, but again, his latter years at Barca were a fucking disaster now looking at it in hindsight. Lucas Digne was serviceable for Barca, was not bad whatsoever, but again, wasn't some amazing player. And Cillessen was really, really good as a backup keeper. Really, really good. I wish we had Cillessen now, because our backup keeper situation isn't great with Iñaki Peña, but again, I'm not going to shit on Cillessen. I think it was good, but to reiterate, you would think this is an Everton transfer window with the arrivals that came in. Just awful to look at. This is an eyesore for me. An eyesore, man. I remember I was a sophomore in high school. Man, I'm aging myself here. I was a sophomore in high school when this happened. I was going into my sophomore year of high school, I should say, sorry, when this transfer window happened. And when I saw that we signed Paco Alcácer for $30 million, I just went and hit the cart. I was like, I gotta forget. I gotta go hit the cart. I mean, it was probably some fake cart that gave me, that damaged my brain and killed all my brain cells. But I was like, I gotta go hit the cart. I gotta go hit the cart because I literally can't do this anymore. I gotta forget about this shitty transfer window, whatever Bartomeu was doing. So yeah, a little insight into my personal life right there. What I did when I found out we signed Paco Alcácer for $30 million, I went and got extremely high to forget, and it actually made me. I thought I was going to forget about it, but you guys know when you get a bad trip and you actually become even more aware. I was even more aware that we signed Paco Alcácer, and then I was like, oh my god, this sucks. But anyway, yeah, this one to me is going to get a 1 out of 10. One of the worst transfer windows any big club has ever had. Genuinely, I believe that. I genuinely believe that with every fiber of my being. I have a whole TikTok video dedicated to this specific transfer window. A whole TikTok video dedicated to this one. That's how bad I thought it was. But yeah, 1 out of 10 for me. Let's move on to 17-18. In this season, Barca brought in Philippe Coutinho. They brought in Ousmane Dembélé. They brought in Paulinho. They brought in Nelson Semedo. Oh my god. They brought in Jerry Mina. They brought in Gerard Deulofeu. and they brought in Marlon. Who the fuck is that? Marlon. Yeah, I thought it's a Malcolm, but Malcolm was way later. And they brought in Marlon. And then they go of Neymar. They let go of Javier Mascherano. They let go of Christian Tello, who appears in this video fucking 50 times. They let Delofeu go on loan to Watford. They let go of Jeremy Mathieu, and they let go of Jordi Masip. This transfer window to me is going to get a 2 out of 10. And the only reason why it doesn't get a 0 or a 1 out of 10 is because of Paulinho. That's the only reason why. Because he was really, really good in that one season he was at Barca. He was really, really good. I remember his goal against Getafe. This guy came up so big for us, so many different times with goals. But, I mean, selling Neymar for 222 million, selling what was a top 3 no-doubt player in the world at the time. And the two guys you brought in to replace him are Philippe Coutinho and Ousmane Dembélé. 2 generational flops. 2 of the worst flops in the history of Barca, most notably Coutinho, because Dembélé came good at some point later on in his Barca career, slightly, but I mean, he wasn't amazing, but he came good a good amount, you know what I mean? Like, he wasn't that bad for his whole time, unlike Coutinho. But again, spending the Neymar money on those 2 guys is ridiculous. It's honestly, it's malpractice, the fact that we brought in those 2 guys. Nelson Semedo, 35 million on him. I mean, Jesus Christ, bro. That guy just... Jerry Mina, oh my God. This is painful to look at. This is painful to look at. The fact that Barca had this much money to spend, and they spent it on Coutinho, Dembélé, and fucking Semedo. I mean, Paulinho, like I said, was good, but this is just... I don't even know, man. Honestly, this is depressing to watch. The only reason why I get to 2 out of 10 is because of Paulinho, because like I said, that season that he was at Barca, I thought he had really, really good moments. I thought he was a decent signing. Again, 40 million is a lot, but whatever. But yeah, man, this to me is just not good enough. But anyway, let's move on to 18-19 because I can't look at the screen any further. I'm going to have an aneurysm. The next season is 18-19, like I said. I don't know why this one is in bold and the other ones aren't, but anyway, I don't even know. Whatever. Anyway, this season, Barca brought in Malcolm. They brought in Clement Lenglet. They brought in Arthur Melo. They brought in Arturo Vidal. They brought in Emerson Royale. They brought in Jason Murillo from loan. They brought in Kevin Prince Boateng on loan. And they brought Todibo, obviously on 1 million from Toulouse. And then they go Paulinho, which actually they gained money from the Paulinho transfer because they bought him for 40, sold him for 42, which is pretty good. They let go of Jeremy Mina for 30. I mean, not bad. Lucas Digne left for 20 million. Gerard Delofeu left for 13 million. Marlon left for 12 million. And obviously Alex Vidal left for 9.3 million. This transfer window to me is going to get a 4 out of 10. I mean, again, like I said, getting 42 million for Paulinho isn't bad. Getting 30 million for Jeremy Mina isn't bad. But man, the arrivals are just awful, bro. The arrivals are just awful. Apart from Arturo Vidal, that's really the only one. But again, look at this, man. Look at Emerson, Clement Lenglet, Malcolm, and Arthur Melo. I mean, just not good enough to me. Simply not good enough. This was a subpar transfer. None of these guys, except for Arturo Vidal, help Barca in any way. In any way, Lenglet is he's still a burden for Barca to this day. We can't get rid of the guy. We keep sending him out on loan. He's still a burden for Barca to this day. Malcolm, 41 million. You bought him from Bordeaux. He was promising, but man, talk about a waste of fucking money. I mean, this guy had not a single memorable moment at Barca. And again, he was young, but still, it just wasn't good enough. Paulinho, like I said, 42 million for him. You made money on that transfer, which is good, but still. Jeremy Mina, like, again, this to me was just, it was below mid. It was just below mid because, again, none of these guys help Barca in any way. None of them help Barca in any way. So for that reason, it's going to get a 4 out of 10. Let's move on to 19-20. In this season, Barca brought in Antoine Griezmann. They brought in Frenkie de Jong. They brought in Neto. They brought in Pedri. Not bad. They brought in Junior Firpo. They brought in Braithwaite, and they brought in Mateus Fernandes from Palmeiras. And then they go of Malcolm, Jasper Cillessen, Andre Gomes, Paco Alcácer, Denis Suarez, Philippe Coutinho, Marc Cardona, Marco Curella, obviously, and Sergi Palencia. This one to me is going to get a 6.5 out of 10. A little bit above mid. A little bit above mid. What fucks this is the 120 on Griezmann, and we know how much we sold him for later on. That's just awful business. But again, man, when I look at the departures, I'm not trying to be too harsh, but again, spending 120 on Griezmann when you were in the middle of a financial crisis, starting to get into a financial crisis, is terrible, and especially the wages you put him on were just awful. But again, the Bartomeu masterclass. But again, when I look at the departures, Barca got rid of a lot of dead wood. Is that how you say dead wood? Or guys who weren't useful anymore. Paco Alcácer, Denis Suarez, Jasper Cillessen, Malcolm. I mean, those guys, you weren't gonna, they were never gonna be part of your plan. So you got rid of them, which is good. You pivoted quickly. And then you brought in Frenkie de Jong, which Barca fans can say what they want about him. He's been a plus transfer, in my opinion, for Barcelona. I believe Frenkie de Jong, when healthy and when on the pitch, and when right, is one of the best midfielders in the world. And again, he was part of that Ajax team that made it to the UCL semifinal under Erik ten Hag. and he was probably the second most important player on that team behind Matthias de Ligt. So that, and I think Frankie's a good player. So that for me is gonna be, it's a good transfer. And also Pedri, I mean Pedri for 23 million from Las Palmas. People think Pedri is a La Masia product. He's not. But still, this business for Pedri is fantastic, man. 23 million for Pedri is, I mean, Pedri in today's market would go for upwards of 120 million. So the fact that you got him for 20, if you sold him, which should never happen. I mean, I might stop supporting Barca if they ever sell Pedri. I'm joking, but I mean, it would be awful. I mean, you made 100 million basically off this transfer already. And again, Griezmann wasn't terrible for Barca. I'm not going to sit here and say that Griezmann was bad. We were flirting with him back and forth. He rejected us, obviously, for a couple of years. But again, I'm not going to say Griezmann was bad because it kind of happened to him what happened with Riquelme when he came to Barca. Obviously, Riquelme was with Louis van Gaal and Griezmann was a fucking, with Ronald Koeman, just two guys that, I mean, that were just stupid, but whatever. They just weren't playing in their natural position, a position where they thrive, and that's why I think Griezmann just didn't end up working out. But again, 120 million for a guy who was just simply not that impactful when he got to Barca. And we saw what Griezmann's been since he left Barca. Back to Atletico Madrid, he's been fantastic. That to me is going to bring it to a 6.5 because again, 120 on Griezmann is absolutely crazy. But Frankie de Jong and Pedri do help this transfer window a lot because those two guys have helped the club and contributed to the club massively since their arrival. Obviously, going back 4 years or 5 years now. Next up, we have 2020-2021. In this season, Barca brought in Marlon Pjanic, they brought in Trincao, they brought in... Why do I keep laughing when I read some of these names? I'm sorry, I just can't help it. They brought in Serginho Dest, they brought in Ansu Fati from Barca. They brought up Ansu Fati, from Barca B. They brought up Ronald Araujo from Barca B, and they brought up Ricky Puig from Barca B. And they let go of Artur Melo. Artur Melo. They let go of Nelson Semedo. They let go of Carles Perez. They let go of Marco Curella. Luis Suarez left to Atletico Madrid. Ivan Rakitic left to Sevilla. Todibo went to fucking Benfica. Rafinha left to PSG. Arturo Vidal went to Inter, and Arda Turan went to Galatasaray. This transfer window to me from Barca is going to get a 5 out of 10. The definition of mid. Just a mid transfer window. Not great, not bad. Just a mid transfer window. You brought in guys, obviously, like Pjanic, who didn't contribute at all. And honestly, if I was just looking at transfers, this would be a 3 out of 10 because Trincao, Pjanic, and Serginho Dest are talking about 3 terrible transfers. But again, the only reason why I'm giving it a 5 is because you brought up Ronald Araujo from Barca B, and you also got rid of guys that were just not part of the club anymore, that were just not going to be part of your future plans. Luis Suarez, well, I love him, and I don't love him. I think he's actually kind of a piece of shit off the pitch. I think I mean, we all know he's a scumbag. But again, as a player, I love him. And he obviously went on to win a league title the year after he left Barca and scored a good amount of goals. I didn't think he was Barca quality anymore, so I wasn't too bad about him leaving because again, I just didn't think he was good enough. And then obviously Ivan Rakitic, who I really, really like, but again, he just wasn't Barca quality anymore. But to me, like I said, when I look at the departures and the arrivals, I mean that whole the Pjanic Arthur swap is just crazy to me. That whole swap deal is fucking insane. You bring in Arthur, but then you give him to Juventus, and then we take Pjanic, and then Pjanic was shit while he played for Barca. Yeah, for me, this transfer window just simply was nothing special. It was just mid. Again, Araujo comes in, and you get rid of other guys. It's just a mid transfer window. Honestly, now that I think about it, I might change the rating to a 4 out of 10 because I think it was a little bit worse than it was better, a little bit more bad than it was good, I should say. But again, it was just mid to me. So that's my thoughts on 2020, 2021 and my rating. Let's move on to 21, 22. Talk about an eventful transfer window. Barca brought in Ferran Torres, obviously in January from Man City. They brought in Emerson Royal. They brought in Demir. They brought in Memphis Depay. They brought in Eddie Garcia. They brought in Sergio Aguero. They brought in Aubameyang, obviously in January. They brought in Traore in January. They brought in Luke de Jong, the GOAT. The streets will never forget you, Luke de Jong. They brought him in, obviously. They brought in Collado. They brought in Iñaki Peña. They brought in Dani Alves, who was without a club, obviously on a free. And then they go with guys like Emerson Royal, Junior Firpo, obviously. I'm trying to see here. Lionel Messi obviously left. I just read that Messi left and it kind of made me sad. I'm sorry, guys. I should be professional. I'm filming a video here. You can't let your emotions get the better of you. But again, this transfer window to me is gonna get a 5 out of 10. I think Barca did great business in the January transfer window. I think bringing in Ferran Torres, he was actually decent for us in the time that he was at the club. I thought that was decent business. Again, paying that much money for him is not something that I like, but you know, that happened. Luke de Jong saved Barca so many times. Great business. Okay. Aubameyang, to me, the 6 months he spent at Barca were extremely amazing. extremely amazing. That's not good vocabulary. Were extremely productive, I should say. The 6 months that he was at Barca, he was extremely productive to me. I thought he was a good signing. Iñaki Peña, obviously we know him now. He's playing for the club. He's not great, but whatever. And then obviously Dani Alves, you brought him in on a free transfer. I think he actually contributed fairly well to Barca. Scored that goal against Atletico Madrid when Barca beat them 4-2 at the Camp Nou. One of the best performances under Xavi. And like I said, you bring in Sergio Aguero, who, I mean, just wasn't, he fucking almost died. So again, you can't blame him for that. But again, he came on a free, so not much loss there. Memphis Depay on a free transfer coming off that great season that he had at Olympique Marseille. To me, that at the moment seemed like a good transfer, even though it did not end up being like that. But anyway, and then again, the departures, I'm not mad about any of them except for Messi, and that's why it's getting a 5 out of 10, because Messi shouldn't have left Barca. He just shouldn't have left Barca, especially not on a free. If Messi's gonna go, you gotta get money for him. I'm sorry. If Messi's gonna go, you're gonna get money for him. And all these arrivals were good, and they helped us in that second half of the season under Xavi. Obviously, climb up to second place. That was great. But Messi leaving is just something that, again, I'm a Barca fan, so take this with a grain of salt. I'm not being as objective as I should be filming this video, but again, it's my club. I do, like, it's the greatest ever player in the history, not just of football, but not just of my club, but of football. And seeing him in the way he left just kind of leaves a bitter taste in my mouth. So again, and Messi to me, at this time, was still the best player in the world, and he went on to win the Ballon d'Or that year. So we know that he was still amazing as a player. He won the Copa America literally like 10 days before Barca got rid of him. So again, you get rid of Messi, who was still the best in the world, but you bring in some good players in January in that business. The January transfer window really saves us, by the way, because the guys that Barca brought in the summer weren't great. But the January transfer window, the guys that Xavi brought in really saved us. So for that reason, I'm gonna give it a 5 out of 10. Just mid. Again, the guys you brought in January were good, but letting go of Messi, I just can't be happy with that. So for that reason, it's gonna get a 5 out of 10. Then moving on to 22-23. Talk about a banger of a transfer window looking at it now. You brought in Rafinha, you brought in Jules Koundé, you brought in Robert Lewandowski, you brought in Pablo Torre, you brought in Frank Kessie, you brought in Andreas Christensen, and you brought in Marcos Alonso, Hector Bellerin. We'll just forget about those two. And you let go of Philippe Coutinho. Aubameyang left, obviously, to Chelsea, which I wasn't happy about, but still he left. You let go of Memphis Depay. You let go of Trincao. You let go of Hector Bellerin. Umtiti went out on loan. Ricky Puig left. Martin Braithwaite left. You got, obviously, Pjanic left. You got all those salaries off your books. This transfer window, to me, is going to get a 10 out of 10. Some of the best business Barca has done in recent memory. I mean, Rafinha, people think that he hasn't been good ever at Barca, obviously, but prior to the season where he's been arguably the best player in the world, that's a bunch of bullshit. Rafinha has been a double-digit GA guy since he got to Barca. Since his first season, up until already, obviously this season, he's already past, I think, 20 GA already, or he's close to 20 GA, and we're only in fucking November. This guy's a beast. And he's already come good for Barca. Amazing. Jules Koundé, he's simply the best defensive right back in the world. And if you want to play him at center back, he can be one of the best center backs in the world. The guy's a stud. Robert Lewandowski, I've had my criticism of him. Obviously, under Xavi, I didn't think he was great, especially post-World Cup. Up until last season, like obviously prior to the start of this season, I didn't think he was great. Obviously, and you guys know that I've criticized him a lot on this channel. But this season, he's been amazing. And for Barca, his goal record is great. I can't lie. His goal record is great. Hasn't shown up much in the big games prior to this season, but again, this season he's coming good, so I'm happy for Robert Lewandowski, and 45 million for him. You know, at the time he was arguably the best striker in the world, so that's obviously not a bad price. Pablo Torres playing now for Barca under Hansi Flick, and I think he's been really, really good in the minutes that he gets. Obviously scored that goal against Villarreal. I think he's good. Frank Kessie literally scored a goal to win Barca the league, or basically pseudo-win Barca the league against Real Madrid at the Camp Nou when he played. I thought he was amazing for Barca. Andreas Christensen, there's obviously rumors now that he's going to leave in January, or obviously definitely in the summer. Whatever it is, he's been one of Barca's most consistent players since he got to the club. Hector Bellerin wasn't great. Obviously, we got to be honest, he just wasn't great. But again, who gives a fuck? And Marcos Alonso, I mean, Jesus Christ, man. Just, we'll move past this one. But again, this one to me is a 10 out of 10 because I think the departures were great. I mean, getting rid of Coutinho, you lost a lot of money on him, but you got rid of him. Getting rid of Memphis Depay, getting rid of Bellerin once you obviously brought him in and then you sold him. But yeah, this to me was a pretty good transfer window from Barca. Not pretty good. It was awesome for Barca. So anyway, moving on past that. Then we have 23-24. You brought in Vitor Roque, you brought in Oilo Romeo, you brought in Ilkay Gundogan, you brought in Inigo Martinez, and you brought in Joao Cancelo and Joao Felix on loan, and then you let go of Ousmane Dembélé, Antoine Griezmann, Frank Kessie, Nico Gonzalez, fucking Abde. You let go of Trincao, you let go of Sergio Busquets, Jordi Alba, and Samuel Umtiti. Obviously, Busquets and Jordi Alba both joined Inter Miami on a free transfer. This one to me is going to get a 7 out of 10. I think it was a decent transfer window from Barca. I think letting Sergio Busquets and Jordi Alba, that old guard, kind of leave was a good idea. I wasn't happy with the Frank Kessie leaving, especially for 12 minutes. I thought he was still serviceable for Barca and could have definitely helped us last season, especially when you look at his replacement in Oriol Romeu. I didn't think he was obviously great, but getting rid of Ousmane Dembele, you know, I wasn't happy with it at the time because I think he was coming off a really, really good season for Barca. But now that we look at it, I mean, this literally helped bring in Lamine Yamal. This literally helped bring in Lamine Yamal, the fact that Dembele left. So again, I'm happy about that. And Joao Cancelo, Inigo Martinez, Okay Gundogan all had good moments for Barca. I mean, Inigo has been one of the best center backs in the world this season. Obviously, he's still playing for us. Gundogan, he's not looking good for City now, and that's looking like really, really good business from Barca to let him go. But last season, he was our most consistent player. And Joao Cancelo, prior to the home stretch of the season, the final stretch against PSG, Real Madrid, and obviously Girona, he was really good for us. I mean, he was really, really good. He was playing well. And Joao Felix had his moments, but wasn't great. So again, for me, this one is going to be a little bit better than it was bad because getting rid of Griezmann, getting rid of Dembele, you know, but finally getting the money for Griezmann, obviously getting rid of Dembele, it's good. And obviously, like I said, Gundogan, Inigo, and Cancelo were decent for us, and Inigo was still decent for us, and Gundogan was more than decent for us. So for me, it's going to get a 7 out of 10. And then finally, we have 24-25. So far, this was a 10 out of 10. Again, in the moment, I didn't think so, but Dani Olmo has been amazing for us. Pau Victor has been decent when he plays. And, you know, Okay Gundogan is not looking like the same player that he was. Des, finally we got rid of him. You let go of Sergio Roberto. Marcos Alonso left. So far, I gotta say it's a 10 out of 10. You didn't spend much money. You got rid of older players that you need to get rid of. I'm gonna give Barca props for this. Again, I thought the stretch run was poor when it ended back in September. But now that I look at it, obviously, bringing up Marc Gasol from Barca B, it's also amazing. Bringing in Szczesny after he retired for like a couple months, that's really good. Bringing up, you know, the players that you brought up have been helpful, except for Gerard Martin. So this one to me is going to be a 10 out of 10 so far. But yeah, man, that's the end of the video. A really, really long video. I barely cut throughout this whole video, so I hope you guys don't mind about that. I just kind of once I get in a roll, I kind of just keep going. So again, yeah, man, that's all I have to say. I love every single one of you. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. I know a lot of you guys are going to disagree with what I said, but again, that's what the comment section is for. Let me know what you agree with, disagree with. I'd love to hear it. But yeah, man, I love you guys, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out.